Welcome to the Vocation Transformation Podcast. We're celebrating ordinary working Christians making extraordinary contributions to the places and the spaces where we work and live. I'm Chuck Proudfit with my co-host Laura Jackson. Buckle up for some stories that will forever change the spiritual significance you see in work.
It's my great pleasure to introduce the listening audience to my friend, Michelle Smith-Lewis. I met Michelle a few years ago at a conference and was so inspired by her story. So many people go through things in life and they just dig a hole or they just go on, and she did more than that. She actually took the things that she was going through, the struggle she was going through, and with God's help and with God's direction, started an amazing ministry. But before we get to that, I'd like to introduce you to her. So Michelle, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in the profession that you have today?
Thank you for having me. So background, after graduating from high school, I attended Raymond Walters for 2 years to become a legal assistant. I always had a fascination, kind of a love for the law, wanting to know how it worked and all the intricacies of it. So I decided to target that. And after graduation from Raymond Walters with an associate degree, I began working for law firms. And that was my love of the legal profession and working for attorneys, which has now been for about 31 years total. And from the law firms, back in 2012, I went to Mercy Health, where going from a law firm into corporate was a huge culture shock. And it's been a love affair ever since. I love my job. And I am the senior executive assistant for the chief legal officer of the system.
Michelle, we often ask in this podcast, when did that light bulb go off for Sunday faith meets Monday work? I know for you, it was at Mercy Health. It was shifting out of the legal profession and into this new role, but share with our listeners what that was like and how that happened for you.
Working in a law firm setting environment for over 20 years at the time, I was used to, and I loved working in the law firm. And for all the attorneys that I've ever supported, working in that environment, the billable hours, churning out the work, becoming a paralegal in that setting, it's a dog-eat-dog world in the law firm. And going into corporate and working for in-house counsel, it was laid back, it was chill. And what was really a culture shock for me again, from law firm to corporate, was also that Bon Secours Mercy Health, used to be Mercy Health, but now Bon Secours Mercy Health considers itself a ministry. So being in corporate, and they did not hide their faith. I mean, their core values are centered around Jesus. So I was allowed to say the word Jesus at work without anybody looking weird.
Imagine that.
Yeah. And the fact that I've not been to one meeting, even now virtually, but in person or virtually, a corporate meeting, I've not been to one where it's not opened up without a prayer and reflection. So it was really cool to be able to just breathe and be me. It took a while because I'm like, is this real? Is this really happening? But it was really happening.
I know in 2017, a situation happened for you that changed the trajectory of your life. Can you tell us about that?
In 2017, I received a call while I was at work that changed everything. So I want to preface it by saying that my boss and I and his wife, we have a beautiful relationship. He is the best boss, and he's tried to train me for all these years to say not that I work for, but that I work with. But when I received a call that my son had been involved in an incident that would lead to his incarceration, the first person that I told was my boss. Well, I went into his office, closed the door, told him what happened, and literally fell into his arms, and he just held me while I cried and got mascara all over his white business shirt. And it started from there. I was off of work for a week so that I could gather myself enough to try to breathe and go back to work and function. But while I was off, he and his wife would check in with me and make sure I was okay, offer their assistance in any way. So from there, 2017 to 2020, of course, COVID happened and we began to work remotely. And during that time, God, over that 3-year span, he started to birth a thing. All of the support that I was getting, all the support that I was chasing after, and all of those are God moments, which would take a long time to explain. But the hunger, the passion to be the change that I wanted to see, to be a different person, to be a different mom. When my son came home, I wasn't responsible for his choices, but we're all interconnected. We're family. So I wanted to dig deep into me. I wanted God to do a deep dive into me, thus being the change I want to see. And that's when the whole journey to inner healing began over that 3-year time period until he led me into creating the nonprofit Faith Freedom Life, which serves families of the incarcerated. Every resource, everything that I'm involved in is what is offered to people I encounter.
So, for example, what types of services that are supportive do you folks provide through the ministry?
Yeah, so the heart of the ministry is support group, which is virtual, which is really cool because we're able to serve people all across the state. We've had people and still do Florida, Pennsylvania, Mississippi. We're able to serve people from anywhere. So support group is following our 12 steps to inner healing. And they literally are 12 steps with a scripture attached to each one of them that me and a team member, we just outlined what our process has been during our inner healing journey. And we came up with these steps and they turned into 12 steps. That was another God moment. But anyway, we cover those 1 month at a time. We have guest speakers that speak to us about relevant topics that we're dealing with. We have workshops, active listening, speaking the truth in love, renewing the mind, which comes from EMI with their permission. We have Art of Becoming. We have a retreat annually. And we're going to next month, as we did last year, we're going to go to the Springs in Indiana for our weekend retreat. It's just a really neat community. We have outreach events in the community. And we give welcome home bags to men and women returning home from incarceration.
Michelle, as you've gotten this ministry up and running, if I understand correctly, your workplace at Mercy has not only been willing to, in a sense, allow you to do this work alongside your vocational work with them, but they've actually embraced it and even been of support to it. Tell us a little bit about that.
From 2017, when everything initially happened, as I mentioned, my boss and his wife And maybe a select few of people knew what I was dealing with in private at home in my personal life. And as time has gone, so the organization was formed in 2020. So as of late last year, which it would have actually been 2 years later, it's been a process for me, because it's really, really interesting how God has me kind of as the face for him, his hands and feet for the organization, because in real life, I'm really a private person. So it took a while for me to be able to open up to my colleagues and my coworkers, the other executives. But when I did, they fully, and I did it, we work remotely, and I did it via email. It was surrounding, I had to pray about it, think about it, but it was surrounding a fundraiser, the first fundraiser for the organization. And I sent an email blast to everybody, opened up with background of what happened, where that led me, and what I'm doing currently. And the response was overwhelming to the point of tears for me, sitting here reading all their replies, and some had called me. They fully welcomed what I'm doing outside of work, so to speak. They shared their own stories of friends and families that have dealt with incarceration, and they fully supported me financially, supported the organization financially as well, and asked to be kept up to date with what's going on. It was a miracle to me. It was overwhelming support in a good way.
That's such a great testimony. Thank you so much for doing that. If someone wanted to get in touch with you and find out more about you or about Faith Freedom Life, how would they do that?
So they can visit the website, faithfreedomlife.org. And on the website is how we serve, what we offer. So that would be everything that I just mentioned. And also they can see the 12 steps to inner healing that we follow. And my contact information is listed on the website, the phone number and email.
As I was listening to this story, which is just such a neat expression of faith at work integration in the fullest sense, it really struck me that the biggest theme was this theme of involvement. The choices we make every day at work, will we sit back or serve? And so in the earliest stages of this journey for Michelle, she was stepping up for her son. So she's sort of serving him privately. But the bigger part to me was the story of how first she used her skill set that she developed through her work to organize and run this ministry, serving others. And as she indicated, from states all over the US, but then opening it up within her workplace so that they could come alongside and serve with her. It's just such a neat story of how the work and the ministry become completely indistinguishable from each other.
Absolutely, Chuck. What strikes me about Michelle is that so many people say, well, I don't have time. It's not my thing. It's not my personality. But as she said, she's very private. She's very introverted. And yet she was willing to step out of that comfort zone and really take a leap of faith with God to set up this ministry to help others. And it's in a field that is so needed today.
Thanks for listening to Vocation Transformation. We pray for transformation in your vocation as you build your witness at work, one wise choice at a time. If you know of a story to share, or if you are one, contact us through this email, info@workonpurpose.org. That's info@workonpurpose.org.